So the one loss was so traumatizing. We don't know what to do besides win. Peschel puts in that shot where it hits probably something this big. Incredible goals that you're like, any level of hockey, these are going in. So growing up in Minnesota, my dad and his whole side of his family were big hunters. So guns for us and hunting was synonymous with dogs. I think with any like dog death I've experienced, you know, remembering them at the end isn't what I remember. You know, like I remember that chunk of years where there's still the dog that you're like, that's who they were.
Welcome to Dogs Need Jobs.
Welcome to Canines for America. My name is Ryan, and down below at my feet is Siren. And today we're going to be speaking with a very special guest, Coach Kelsey Cline from The Ohio State University women's ice hockey team. Coach Cline is a graduate from the University of Minnesota, Carlson School of Business Management, where she has her degree in her advanced degree in marketing. And Coach Cline is actually a 2014 and a 2015 national champion at the University of Minnesota, where she played ice hockey. Coach Cline also now in her later years is a 2022 and a 2024 national champion as a coach with The Ohio State. Coach Cline has been in 4 straight national championship games at Ohio State, and then has won 2 at Ohio State. So today we're very excited to get going and speaking with Coach Cline in regards to what it's like to grow up with canines and what it's like to coach at a collegiate national level. Let's get started. So, Coach Cline, walk me through, because we're going to get into the dogs, we're going to get into our philosophies and also women's ice hockey here today. But maybe, what would be to just open us up, as a young person, what is probably like one of the, did you grow up with dogs, I guess, to start off with? So you grew up with dogs?
Yeah. So my dog story is interesting because I've had a blend. So growing up in Minnesota, my dad and his whole side of his family were big hunters. So growing up, again, with guns, learning how to be around guns for us and hunting was synonymous with dogs. So all of the dogs we knew were very obedient, trained, hunting dogs. They lived outside. They didn't come in our house. Lived in our backyard and in a kenneled area. So
now, did you do any of this training as well? So was it your family? Or?
No, we sent them to hunting trainers. So they'd go for a few weeks, and then they'd come back ready to go, and then they would train us on the calls that the dog learned.
Okay, so they like the dog's commands and stuff. All right.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you were kind of like more like you're like, oh my gosh, okay, we got these radical hunting dogs.
Yeah, ever since I can remember.
Oh, okay. So dogs have been a huge part of your life.
Huge part, yeah.
Of who you are today.
Yeah, first dog that I can remember was a black lab.
What was this, a boy or girl?
A girl named Muddy.
A girl named Muddy.
Yeah,
okay.
Muddy.
Okay.
And then we had a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, Tex.
Tex.
Which loved his fur, was that wavy.
That wiry.
Oh, yeah. He was awesome. And then Yellow Lab, Yellow.
His name was Yellow.
Yep.
So who's naming these dogs?
My dad claims that they came with the names.
Okay,
but
Muddy and Yellow.
Yeah, but I'm sure me and my brother had part of it.
Okay.
But then it was actually really cool. So Yellow, she was the last hunting dog we had. She passed a few years ago, but we actually sent her to breed. So my senior year of high school, which would have been 2013, my graduation party was the place to be because we had our little puppy, so we kept one of hers that she had, and that's now my brother's dog, Louie, who he is one of the best hunting dogs we've had.
And obviously he named Louie because you can't use the excuse that he came with the name.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yep. Louie was self-named, and then Louie's still alive. He has now turned into a full house dog, couch potato. I'll send you some photos, but he'll lay on his back with his paws up in your arms. So he's come full circle from working to retired.
So he's taken to the retired life.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
really
and
adapted well.
he loves it. He soaks in every moment. So yeah, so we grew up with hunting dogs, and then growing up, we actually would beg every Christmas, ask our parents, like, can we get an indoor dog? Can we get an indoor dog? And it was always no, no, no. You know, we have the hunting dogs. And actually, how we ended up with our first house dog was one of my grandmothers passed, and she still had a dog. You know, but my grandfathers were passed, and so we had to take the dog in, and it was English cocker, so she's got, you know, the long ears,
and they're wavy a little bit.
Yes, but the problem. Adorable. Like I eventually need to get a dog, and that's, I think, the kind I would get, just because that was my first experience with the indoor dog, and I loved her. Like she was like my best buddy, and what was interesting about her, and again, how all of us, you know, see dogs as a human, was her being just with my grandma treated her like a human. So if my grandma had a bowl of ice cream, she had a bowl of ice cream, right? So over time, when we inherited, Ashley was her name. Ashley, the dog, she ended up having diabetes. So we just like a human. So twice a day, like, we're taking the skin on her neck, you know, putting the insulin boost. But man,
did she still get to eat ice cream?
Oh yeah. So
you just kept the habits.
Why
stop?
Yeah, she was our sister. So
is there a particular favorite type of ice cream that Ashley might have
had? Probably some peppermint, you know, chocolate
like
chip mint. Yeah, like a mint chip.
Mint chip, okay.
Yep, but she loved anything. You know, she wasn't a hater on anything. At my grandma's, she'd get a lot of chocolate ice cream, but yeah, so that's how we inherited our first indoor dog. It was Ashley, and it was actually funny because my dad, for a long time, he'd always be the one being like, no, 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 but then he took to Ashley, and it was like, you know, then she like becomes my buddy. And so then once Ashley passed, it was kind of like, man, we have this weird void, you know, like, I don't know. Quieter. That you're like, you kind of miss having a dog. So then he gave in and let us get our next indoor dog, which was Maggie.
You think your dad really gave in, or do you think your dad really wanted it, but he still had to maybe be that strong hunter? No,
for sure.
Still gonna no, but he's like, Ashley, it was so much fun.
Oh, 100%, 100%. That he was like, I do like this. But yeah, so then once Ashley passed, it all worked out where we got Maggie, and she was a mixture of like a Shih Tzu and a Terrier, so little white, fluffy, white gray dog. We adopted her. She came, from what we understand, was in Alabama, was like found under a car. Which, the hilarious story about her always is, and one of my best friends from growing up, our next door neighbor, when they brought Maggie over to meet us, we met her on the driveway and whatever, and she's like cuddled up to us, like rubbing bellies, never growls, whatever. We were like, great, like we're gonna take her, whatever. So then once we finally get her, then over the years, kind of like that mean side, that mean kind of, you know, past trauma side came out, where, you know, like the growling and, you know, like not biting, but like if you get close, like, you know, I'll snap at you. And me and my friends still joke to this day, like, man, she duped us so hard. Just right when she first met us, like, was so nice. You wouldn't think she'd ever growl at anyone. And then
she saw you guys coming.
Oh, she's like, those guys are suckers. Yeah, so, but Maggie turned out to be awesome. Like, yeah, she was great. As she got older, like, she became, you know, an older, cranky lady. But you know, through her prime years, she was awesome. And, you know, one of those things too, where like once she passes, it's like you feel like a family member's gone. But I think with any like dog death I've experienced, you know, remembering them at the end isn't what I remember. You know, like I remember that chunk of years where they're still the dog that you're like, that's who they were.
Yeah.
You know, for that long period of time.
And it's funny you say, I think dogs are the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Right? But then it's also like experiencing a dog's life is the greatest thing in the world, but also it's like the worst thing in the world.
Oh, the worst.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's such short-lived.
Right.
And yet, so when you were younger and you experienced that first death, you know, it kind of hits you.
Right.
And then if you continue on with animals, I mean, it's always something that you're constantly, you know, learning how to deal with. So I guess that, you know, going to you here, as you're growing up, I mean, so you've had these dogs your whole childhood, and now you're. I mean, how important do you think that was for you to have those experiences? Seeing what a working dog was like, and the discipline that the working dog had, and the value that a working dog had. But then now you're switching, and now you're finally getting the experience of having that indoor dog.
Right.
I mean, did you see? You know, and you're an athlete, so you're going through youth sports and you're doing a lot of different things. What was that like, being able to maybe come home after a bad game, or did something? I mean, did you see? Was the dog able to fill different maybe holes in your childhood or life that, you know, humans aren't able to, just, you know, from who we are. What was the dog able to do that for you, or what was it like? Or
for sure. And I think there's a few pieces like to unpack in that, where one of the first thing that sticks out to me, like in terms of growing up with a working dog, and from a very young age surrounding hunting, there was the seriousness of the environment.
Danger.
Yeah, you know, if you need to know how these things work. If you don't, like, bad things can happen, right? So then it was like, we go to gun safety training. We learn how to be around that. But I think for me, and especially like in my current job now with coaching, it's very synonymous in terms of when you're working and you're in an environment, everyone's behaving one way. But then when that's over, you can turn it off, and now we behave like this. So for me, it's very easy for me to turn my brain into, when I'm working, right? This is how you have to be.
Yes.
Right? But okay, when work's over and like we're out of that environment, now like we can be normal people, right? So that was the same with the dogs, of like when they're hunting, like they're working. So that doesn't mean you cuddle them, hold them, pet them. Like now we're all behaving differently because now this is work, right? And so it was the same thing, like again, growing up being around guns, like you don't play with them. Like when you're in a hunting environment, like this is how you act, this is what you do. Like you don't do this toward people, or you don't toward dogs. Like this is how you all act. So then it's like,
a process.
Yes,
you're starting to learn a different process than everything else.
And you can see the world, in two different ways, right? So then it's like when we're at home, like now this dog, like now I can pet him, now I can do this, now I can do this.
So kind of understanding the boundaries.
Yes, boundaries
of life, of what is acceptable, not acceptable.
Right, and seeing people in two different lights, like. For an athlete, like they have to see a coach as like when they're in, like for us, the hockey environment, whether that's on ice or in a game, like you're gonna see a different human being, but we're working. Now, when we are at dinners, traveling, you know, all these things, like, now you're gonna see a different human, because now I'm working, but I'm being more of what people, a normal human, right? Like I'm socializing, I'm doing this, right? But being able to flip that switch of this is the coach's coaching and this is the coach's being people connecting with us. You know, so I think to the point of like what dogs and growing up, for me, it's very easy now for me in an adult setting to know those boundaries and how to flip switches, because you grow up with that, you know.
So you think it was pretty valuable then?
Totally.
To understand it. Now, do you see people that you've interacted with that never had that opportunity to grow up with animals, to care for an animal, or let alone a working dog?
Yep.
Do you see that compartmentalize? Do you see that they lack that ability a little bit more, or do you see that people that when you can almost identify somebody like, man, that person grew up with dogs, or that person did not grow up with dogs? Are you able to see that in your world as you got older? And did you kind of have that appreciation that, man, I'm glad my dad had working dogs. I'm glad it was a cool lesson to be taught through animals that maybe I might not have learned if it was something else trying to teach me boundaries and how to turn on and turn off, who I am, I guess.
Yeah, well, for sure. And because to your earlier point, like animals, for some people it's cats, whatever. Like us growing up, it's dogs, like there is an unconditional love, with that animal. And it's like animals, and again, my experience is dogs, they feel what you feel. And you have that, I can't speak to you. So all we have is what, through your eyes, through your body language, what you're doing, like that's all you can tell me. And what I give back to is all you can tell me. So it's like a communication with an animal, in my perspective, is almost deeper than a human, because we can't talk. Like I have to pick up on again, if you're scared, right? Like I have to read that, like Maggie, our smaller dog, terrified of thunderstorms, right? You're like the shaking, the whatever. And it's like, this being can't tell me like, this is what's scaring me, So it's like, all you can do is read them, and all they can do in the same sense of like, if a human's in danger, they can pick up on that. They know that something's not right with you. If you're sad, they know something's not right with you. So it's like you have that connection with the animal that you're like, I can't have it with a human because I can't speak to them, So in terms of people that have like grown up with pets or not, I think so. Like I think there is just a different level of how they see the world. Because, and in like very black and white sense, like in terms of how your parents may give you responsibility with a pet, right? You're like, yeah, I do. I have to go walk them. I have to pick up their, bathroom. I have to feed them. I have to make sure there's water. Like there's very like black and white responsibilities with that you're like, I do have to do this or this animal's in trouble, and I know they're depending on me. They can't do it for themselves. So you care for them in that way. But I think like for me and people, because I didn't have a younger sibling. I have older siblings, but not younger. So I never had like this person I need to watch out for, where like with an animal, you're like, those were, like I'm watching out for them, so you have that level, of care and understanding in terms of that. And
how did that make you feel, that having that kind of that responsibility, or how does that make you feel knowing when you look back on being able to take care of Maggie and being able to give something, a reflection back at that animal? Because like you were saying, when you look in that animal's eyes and you can see that that depth, and you can see that reciprocation coming back at you. Like how did that just make you feel or even now when you're kind of recalling some of these past companions.
Yeah.
I mean, does it make you feel any different than, if I say, hey, tell me about your best friend from junior high?
Right.
Do you feel a difference for, like, hey, Maggie, best friend junior high?
Yeah.
I mean, each one was different, but
right.
Do you feel anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I think, like, when I think about, like, the pets, like all of those pets, it's like I see them truly as family members, right? So, like, you do truly love them, and you're like, they were such a big part of your life and you're their whole life, that it makes you feel like, obviously, like, tons of love, that you're like, I do know have felt that emotion before, type of thing. And you're like, maybe I haven't felt it toward a human being. I don't know. But you're like, for sure, like, dogs for sure. Because you're like, you have that, like, unwritten, like, I got you and you got me. Like, we're good on that level, and, like.
And you can almost trust that they're not going to break that rule.
Right.
That has been established between human and canine.
Right. And you're like, if I'm walking through a dark alley, I know this dog, whatever happens, has got my back. A human, I don't know if you're running the other way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You might say, I'm with you. Until things hit the fan and you're like, all right, Chris, where'd he go?
Right. But, like, I know Maggie is probably, like, already halfway up biting that person's leg.
Even though she's this big.
Yeah, but she's like, that's my
300-pound machine.
Right. Yeah. So, like, and thinking back on that, I think part of it too is when you grow up in that setting and you have, like, again, the dogs, family, all of that. I think, at least for me personally, as I've gone through, like, my life, I have, like, tons of friends, tons of acquaintances. But in terms of people that it's like are my true inner circle, like, I would say I'm more of a person that, like, if you're in my inner circle, I treat you like family, because I think it's just in terms of, again, how you grew up, how you have those connections to all these things. Like, if I'm going to be like, I've got you and you've got me, then it's like, I'm going to treat you like that. Where if it's like, I get a vibe of, like, okay, we're not cool like that. Like, we can be acquaintances, that's fine. But, like, it's not going to be a one-way type of street. So I would say, like, the people that I am close to, like, it's more I consider them like family, and it probably stems from a lot of it of, like, you grow up in kind of like your circle and you have these pets and you're a pack, so I would say that's kind of how it aligns now with me.
Oh, wow. So, Coach, what does it feel like to be, I was a college athlete.
Yeah.
We didn't win anything, but it was awesome being a college athlete. I could only imagine, what does it feel like to win a national championship, let alone 4 of them?
Right.
So, you're a freshman, sophomore year. So you won a national championship every single year you're in college.
No.
Oh, no.
No. Lost.
Oh, okay. How dare you?
One back-to-back.
Okay, one back-to-back.
And then lost. So I was sandwiched by 2 losses. So the one loss was so traumatizing that it was like, we don't know what to do besides win going forward.
Who'd you guys lose to?
Clarkson.
Oh, okay.
In a game that I'll go to my grave, we should have won. Like, self-inflicted, like, mistakes, just bad game, whatever. But by far, we should have won that game, and just the level of disappointment, stunned, all of it. It was like afterwards, people were like, we will make sure this never happens again, type of thing. So that, now, the teams and success I've been a part of, like, how I see things and how I act and whatever, would I have the success I've had if that first loss, my first year didn't happen? I don't know. You know, like, I can't say for sure, but the way that game went and how that team was and everything, like, winning it all is what we felt like that group deserved, and we didn't. And so, like, that level of hurt was just like, never again. Never again do you want to feel like that. And so being part of a national championship team, like, I would say, again, it's incredible. You know, those people you're bonded with for life, like, you do things that people will say, I'm not a national championship, you know, not a national champion. You know, so you're forever etched in that piece. But I would say, like, my crazy take on the whole thing is the losses that I've experienced in national championships, like, the pain in those, the feeling is stronger than the high of winning.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's like just everything that goes into it, you know, because it's even in recruiting, right? Like, you recruit kids 2 years before, right? So before they come in. So they're part of your group. And then you've got the kids, you know, that you're with now. And then over time, these kids that you're getting on the train to build for one game, right? It's years building up to one game, to 60 minutes. And again, in college, it's not a series, right? So like in a Stanley Cup, you got to prove it over 7 games. Like, so we're building up for a 60-minute showdown, you know?
Where anything can happen.
Where anything can happen, you know?
The flip of a coin.
Yeah, you can prepare, you can do all these things, but you're like, all of the work and everything leading up to it, if you don't get it, you're so stunned, you know, and you're just like, all of that work and we didn't win it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's just more, all of that hits you of like the work, the time, all the people, the sacrifices for staff, player, everyone involved, that you're like, to win it all, it's like, that is like the stamp of everything was worth it, you know? Where when you don't win it, you're like, man,
was that sacrifice?
Yeah, and you're like, we should have, and we didn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Could we have done one more practice? Should we have watched more film? Should we recruited a different player or 2 more players?
Right, and then you go through all the lists of questions. But to your point of this past national championship game, the way it ended.
Yeah, tell me about that. I mean, that was probably, I watched the game.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a former athlete, you know, my quick take on it is I've never watched or experienced such a game at an elite level.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like a one and done, it's a one-shot game. Just watching the outcome not being dictated by the athletes.
Totally.
And I think as a fan and somebody that's been watching women's ice hockey, it is such a different game than the men.
Yeah.
But it's also it's kind of one of those games where, you know, am I in the mood to watch that style of hockey?
Yeah.
Well, I'll watch the men's game.
Yeah.
But I'm really in the mood to watch this style of hockey as a male athlete.
Yeah.
Watching the women's game, what you guys bring to the table, I think is just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
But never in the history, you know, I'm 40, going on 49 years old this month.
Yeah.
And in 49 years, I've never, maybe a couple, you know, football games where you've seen like, but never a national championship game, and to not see it, being handled by the players was just discouraging.
Yeah.
And it kind of, as a fan, it gave me a bad taste. And I think to go in what you were saying, all that work and understanding, man, these girls, and I think what you just said too, this what happened in the national was years and years in the making.
Right.
So all these girls, these
Yeah.
athletes, phenomenal athletes, and you guys are one of the best programs in the country.
Right.
So, I mean, to watch all that work,
Yeah.
and then you're like, really? So, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe walk us
Yeah.
through. I mean, we might as well just dive into this.
Yeah.
The 2025 National Championship game against you guys, the Ohio State Buckeyes,
Yeah.
and pretty much now, I think what's happening now is the ultimate nemesis of the Wisconsin Badgers.
Yeah.
You know, and personally, where I played for, I don't think anything good comes from Wisconsin at all.
Growing up
I
in
mean,
Minnesota, we would agree too.
yeah, I mean, just the W is the worst looking, thing to. I mean, talking about bringing trauma back. I mean,
Right,
just seeing
right.
that W. So yeah, talk to us. Yeah,
happened?
What happened here?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
For sure. So, to your first point is, I think a huge piece of that game is, before getting into all of it, is regardless if you have only watched men's hockey, if you've only watched women's hockey, if you are just a hockey fan, whether you were there in person or on TV, it was an incredible display of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. Both teams. I mean, the talent,
there was action, there was
my
talent, there's the back and forth,
the coaching, both staffs. I mean, Mark Johnson, a legendary, coach.
Yeah, and the success Muzz has had, probably
the young
the two,
versus the older regime kind of a thing. So you had a lot of storylines kind of going on there.
For sure, and even after some time has passed, people I've talked to, whatever side of the game they were on, everyone agreed that it was that game, regardless, pushed hockey forward.
Plus,
And
that's
the
goal at the end of the day,
viewership was up, all of that, and that's big for our sport in general.
Mm-hmm.
The way the game went for our group, it's devastating, right? To the point of it's a buildup of the whole year, and back to the whole thing too of games you've been a part of. I can touch on it to circle back on it once I kind of go through the series of events. So essentially, for 2/3 of the game, we're up 3-2. Mm-hmm. We take that third goal right at the beginning of that second period. So
it was Flo Matthews, right?
That one was Peschel.
Oh, Peschel. Oh, just
right
a wicked shot.
Yeah, wicked shot from the top of the circles.
Yep.
And that was the cool part about that game, was so many different styles of goals scored.
Yes.
Joy scores an end-to-end penalty kill goal.
Joy Dunn just goes through the whole.
Whole
Wisconsin's
team.
got 3 Patty Kazmeyers on the ice or something.
A lot of USA players, and Joy's skating end-to-end. And, it's one of those plays where it reminded me a lot of the game-winning goal in last year's national championship, where I saw, Barnes pass 2 Wisconsin people, and right when I saw her pass, I'm like, they're going all the way. Mm-hmm. When I had that same thing when Joy got that puck in our D zone, came off the wall and escaped 2 Wisconsin people, I'm like, she's going all the way. So you have those moments that you're like, you just know, Sloan puts in a beautiful snipe on a 2-on-1. Again, Wisconsin's, their goals, they're great plays. Peschel puts in that shot where it hits probably something this big, but it was incredible goals that you're like, any level of hockey, these are going in. Mm-hmm. And so, we go up a lot of the game. So 2/3 of the game, we're leading 3-2.
In a very hostile environment, I would say, too, for a national champ. I wouldn't say this was an Ohio crowd.
No, I think we had one section, and that was to the people we gave tickets to.
It was 10%
that are related.
OSU, 90% Badger and Gopher people in there that all wanted you to lose.
Oh, yeah, and they're hounding us. I mean, it was a loud environment. Definitely not in our favor at all, but that was a whole nother piece to all of it. And so, again, we're winning. Time is ticking down. We take a bench penalty for too many men on the ice with like 1:50 to go.
Okay, so so less than whatever power plays get. So a minute 50 seconds to go.
Yeah.
Okay, you get a penalty, but really no big deal.
No.
You guys have scored how many goals shorthanded?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and it was fine because.
So you weren't worried at this point. Nobody was
no,
freaking out on the bench. You're like, okay.
Regardless, we were going to see a 6-on-5.
Yeah. Yes.
So in a 6-on-5 scenario, we can't ice it. We can, but we're just going to be doing D-zone face-off, D-zone face-off, D-zone face-off over and over. So being on the kill, we could ice it. So, we can clear it. Okay, there goes 25 seconds. Clear it out. There goes 25 seconds. So you can chip away at the clock. So you're like, okay, and, our kill, like you mentioned, like, had been strong. It had been, good that game too. And so it was like, okay, like we'll figure this out. And like any great sports game, people have to rise up. There has to be heroes. In that penalty kill time, Thiele was phenomenal, right? Like make some backdoor saves. And again, you're talking about 4 or 5, now or in the future Olympians.
Yeah, on that Wisconsin
that you're
roster.
fighting off.
Yes.
So we
the
get
amount of talent that they kept throwing at you, the firepower that they had.
Totally.
Yeah,
so we're in a good spot. Like we're down to 18 seconds, right? So
I mean, imagine. So you have 18 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
It's 18 seconds. You're at Ritter Arena.
Yeah.
Which is where you played your whole entire college career.
Yeah.
And also other coach.
As a player, I won my 2nd championship in Ritter Arena. So what was like ironic about all of that too is, as a player, we won at UNH and Ritter, and at OSU. Last year we won at UNH, and this year would have been Ritter. So you're like, man, like 2 great rings.
This is happening.
Yeah,
you're like this is happening.
Yeah.
We're about, because you guys weren't favored
No.
to beat Wisconsin.
No.
Wisconsin was pretty much, they had 1 loss all year, which was to you guys. Then they also tied you at the Wrigley Field game. And then you guys lost to them pretty convincing. I mean, it was a pretty big win for them, right? I mean,
at LeBron.
The score at their place, which is a tough place to play. But they only had 1 loss. So you're like, oh my gosh, we're about to slay this dragon in front of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is, and out of all the years you played hockey, the probability that goes the way you think it's going to go.
If there's like,
what are we, 99.9? You're like, this is done.
Yeah, if you've got like the ESPN up, and like when you follow the live games and the probability is like 99.8. Like that's where we're sitting right now.
Players, everybody, the whole bench. You're like, we got the Thiele's on fire.
There was players on our bench that I saw with their helmets unbuckled. Like that's where you're at.
Yeah.
So 18 seconds. Again, we're still on the penalty kill, so we're a man down. They have their goalie out, so we're 6-on-4. They're putting pressure, and they shoot one on Thiele. Thiele goes down and has it covered, right? So she's kind of like this, where her glove is here, and then her blocker side is kind of over her glove side.
Okay.
And so
what should happen then?
Yeah.
So once the goalie has the puck covered like that, what should happen?
Ref should blow it dead for a face-off.
Yep. So the ref should have blown the whistle
once the goalie's got it
at that point in time.
Yep.
Okay.
Because then at that point, like once the goalie has it, if you come in and poke, hit, whatever, like now you're either slashing, interfering, whatever with the goalie.
Oh, and that would be a penalty then.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So she's got it, and when you watch it, a Wisconsin player comes in, and not in a stopping motion because that's different, right? Stopping, you can tell the blade is stopping.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes.
So she comes in at a curved angle with her foot, right, and hits Thiele, which causes it then to come under Thiele out the other side through the crease, where then our player is coming through and swipes it. So the swipe ultimately led to Wisconsin being able to challenge the play for our player covering the puck with her palm.
So nothing
in
was
the
called at all during any of that. Nothing. There was no penalty called.
Right.
In
They
just
had to,
normal play.
Yeah.
So nothing. Nothing was stopped. No stop of play. The time kept ticking. And
Right.
And then the refs just blew the whistle. Why?
Well,
how was there a
eventually,
stoppage of
right?
play?
Yeah. Eventually, the play stopped. So all of this is happening probably around the 50-ish mark in
Okay.
time. So that play continues on because our girl comes through, swipes it through, it shoots out the other side. So the play continues down to the 18-second mark. So at the next stoppage of play is when Wisconsin then challenged our player covering it in the crease, which from what was called, a player can't cover a puck with their palm in the crease. But some of the issue lies in so when a coach challenges a no call. So on the ice, there was no call.
Correct.
No call.
That's what, because I remember people in the crowd like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on? And again, you're like 18 seconds. You're like, okay, this game's over.
Right. So when there's no call on the ice and a team challenges, it has to be whatever they're challenging is indisputable. Without a doubt, this happened.
Was it indisputable?
Well, and that's what the hard part is like when.
So it seems like it's indisputable if I hear you say, well.
Well, right, and you're like, the review took a while, all of that. So you're like.
The review took forever.
For a long time.
So when it's taking that long, I mean, I just know as an athlete too, indisputable is like, got it, making the call.
Yes.
Not, okay, rewind and play
and
play in a national championship game with 18 seconds on the clock.
Right.
And you're like, so now to me, I'm like, holy, cannoli, you got other people outside of the people on the ice getting ready to change this game.
Right.
Because if it's taking you this long, then
there has to be some doubt somewhere.
Yes.
Of what happened.
Absolutely.
Right. And so that's what's hard is when you watch it back, it comes through Teely, right? Then under our player, but then you see it trickle out kind of at the same speed on the same path. So you're like, did it go under her? Did it just go under her? Because there was no change in trajectory of the puck. There was no change in speed.
So if she actually touched the puck or covered the puck, she would have touched the puck and
you would have thought something would have changed.
Yeah, something would have changed.
The path, the speed, anything.
And there was nothing.
But again, when you watch it, like it comes through Teely at this angle, and then you see it come out and go out to the corner, where you're like, it follows the same path.
And speed.
Yeah. And, like for us, it's like there is whatever. Like the refs had to make the judgment call, and that is what it is. But the part that is just unsettling is how it got loose. You didn't see it.
Yeah. That was missed.
And
you would think
kicking.
Well, I would think, tell me, it's the end of a game. It's a scrum around the goalie. There's 18, 54, all those seconds. I would think that everybody's eyes are watching the goalie.
Right.
Because if the puck, you're watching, because this is where it's going to happen, 6-on-4.
Yeah.
You're like, it's just going to be peppered as shots coming through. So we would see that.
Yeah.
you would think. So my question to you is, why in your game, as I becoming such a fan of your sport as it's growing so much with the PWHL and just the athletes now that are coming out are phenomenal. And I have a young daughter that is playing hockey. I want to get into, hopefully we have some time I can pick your brain on, recruiting and youth hockey and all that stuff. But why isn't we have it in basketball, we have it in all these other collegiate sports where at the end everything's reviewed.
You're right.
Like, why wasn't every goal is reviewed? I mean, they do it. I mean, so it's kind of hard for just a fan,
Casual
right?
fan,
Because you see all this other stuff. You kind of go like, why? This is 2025, right? We have AI galore, and we have all these things where we can just absolutely almost answer anything that's out there.
Right.
Why don't we have that? Or is it something that's talked about in your game of reviewing in a championship game?
Well, it was. The rule used to historically be every goal is reviewed in NCAA. Then the rules committee or body voted to change it to only to overtime.
Oh, okay.
So now we're going to have to come back full circle to be like, it's probably got to be every goal.
Or even, and so that's on goals, and then even, which I think they have it in the NFL and in college football, any is reviewed by like an outside source.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think what do we have in the NHL? Any type of a play that's questioned, the refs on the ice don't make the call. It's sent to, Toronto, I believe, right? People are in Toronto with all their cameras, and that way you don't have somebody who's, you have that the external. They're not connected to what's going on.
Right.
Because I almost think that every play under a certain time frame should be reviewed now,
right?
Because that changes
history.
That changed. History was changed with now it's like a conspiracy game, right?
Because like what happened, what not? What's your take on it? What's it? Yeah, totally.
Who's a fan? Wisconsin is going to think, no, there wasn't any of this. Ohio is, Ohio State's saying, no. I think what is interesting is hearing the in-between. The people from, California to New Hampshire and everything. What do you think?
Yeah.
Which is just unfortunate because it comes back to you with, like, what are these girls? I mean, when it all happened and then finally went down, like, what? I mean, I noticed that Wisconsin didn't celebrate like I've seen them celebrate before. It was kind of like, ooh.
Yeah,
right? It was a weird gig that I just, saw from these other athletes. And, athletes know what athletes know.
Yeah.
I know, hey, I might have got that one, but I know you got me.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if I saw you back out or blah, 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 I'm like, man, I get to take the medal home.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as an athlete, I think you go to bed at night, and whether you're 22 at the time or now 52, when you're 52, you're like, that really.
You're like, I don't. Well, now you're like, I don't know on that day if we were better than them.
No.
And
because you guys, Wisconsin could have put the goal in with 18 seconds left, got a face off, and sniped it from a point. So you don't.
Totally.
But at least it's answered by the athlete.
Totally. And that's what every athlete deserves is when you're at the biggest stage, let us settle it.
Yes.
Let us settle it. And again, if that means like in terms of what refs review, like maybe you do have to clear the goal. Like, did we miss something? Was our goalie interfered with? Was there skates that weren't in the crease for a good reason, right? Like, why things happened, maybe it's like that. The whole thing has to be cleared.
Yes.
Of like, and even back it up to the offsides, maybe. Like, how did it get in the zone? Let's make sure it got in the zone.
Let's put it into context.
Yeah.
Instead of you're looking at a word being used, and somebody's, right? And you always want to get somebody on their word. Oh, you used the wrong word. But no, let's review my context.
Yeah.
So we got to back up 4 more sentences to see why.
Yeah.
And now you understand. Oh, now that makes sense.
Well, and then you're like, no matter who wins any game, whether
it's a clean game,
whether it's basketball, whatever, all of the points were legit.
Yes.
And you're like, I can live with that.
Yeah, right?
You know, because again, like, all the goals in that game, like, again, our 3, their 2 in regulation, all that, like, well earned. Like, I'll tip my cap to whoever, you know, like, sure. And like, if we're going to get beat, like, beat us, but you're like, beat us legit. You know, so I think that's what's the hardest, you know, for us is, again, you're so close, all of these, the series of events, but it feels like a major part of the series was not seen.
Absolutely. Well, I think now what this is like kind of, you guys in Wisconsin is kind of turning into, you were saying earlier, we only have 60 minutes now.
Yeah.
And it's one and done.
Yeah.
But the way you guys have played now Wisconsin 3 times in a row for the national championship.
Yeah.
So this is almost seeming like it's a series, but it's just going to be spread out over 7 years, and we're going to come to a game 7 years from now, and next year you guys. I mean, so I think what 4 Frozen Fours you've been to now consecutively with Ohio State.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, next year, you guys pretty much same team coming back. You guys bring. I mean, how does the team look for next year?
Yeah.
Do you guys see yourself? I mean, do you see what happened? Because you brought it up earlier when you lost to Clarkson.
Yeah.
You said, man, we shouldn't have lost to Clarkson. Yeah, it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But that game led us to then winning these next 2 back-to-back.
Yeah.
Do you see what happened to you guys in Ritter being a formula for what you have coming? I mean, do you guys see yourself being back in your 5th consecutive Frozen Four? And then I know you've been to 4 other national championship games. Oh, geez, I'm just getting confused. You guys are so, I've never spoken to somebody so athletically successful before. Where, I mean, 4 national championship games you've played in, and now here at Ohio State, you've played in 4 national championship games. So in your career, and you're very young.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a negative.
Right.
I mean, but to be
I take it as a compliment.
To be so young, and in your hockey career, you've always made it to the final game.
Yeah.
One, I mean, that's pretty amazing. So what does that feel like? 2, I guess, right? Multiple point question. How do you keep that drive, that hunger to keep coming back? And do you see yourself at a 9th next year?
Yeah, it is crazy when you think about it, because, you know, I've had people ask me about it before, like sometimes like other coaching peers or things like that maybe they're trying to just make their first one ever, or like, how do you know? And what's really hard for me sometimes is I don't know any different, right? Like all my reality that I live in and experience is making it to the end. Like I don't know how to not do that.
Okay.
You know? So like it's hard for me to speak like on the other side because I don't know it. Like all I know is the things that I've seen, experienced, whatever, that has gotten you to that result. So it's like, that's all I know.
Now, well, how did you get there then?
Yeah.
So what do you know?
Right.
What do you, I mean, I know it's too late for me. So, I mean, Coach, walk me through. I have a young daughter, and she's getting in, you know, she's playing hockey and multiple sports and all that kind of stuff. I mean, to look at somebody so young and so accomplished, you know, and then my daughter, you know, she sees, you know, these girls going and playing in that. I mean, what do I need to do as a parent to help get her or give her the opportunity
Yeah.
to be or to attempt the type
Yeah.
of success that you've had, or maybe how did you do it, or is it?
Yeah.
I mean, with everything, I mean, growing up with your hunting dogs and just
Yeah.
everything. I mean, how did this
How
all
does it, yeah.
come to this point that you're at now? I mean, where you could walk. I mean, like you said. I mean, somebody could have a 50-year coaching career and never get one.
Right. Right.
Let alone play in the one.
Right. Right.
And
right.
you
Yeah.
have 8
Yeah.
that you've experienced.
I know it's nuts, and I think for a long time, your life is so busy, that it probably wasn't till more recently where you start to do some of that reflecting, and especially because I do get this question a lot, whether it's from families, youth coaches, like, what do you do? What do you do? Because it's everyone wants it, and I don't doubt people when they want it, right? But I think honestly, to like simply break it into like 3 pieces where it encompasses everyone it's 3 things. One, at the end of the day, you have to have some sort of God-given ability, right? Like
DNA.
I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't draw. Like, I have no God-given ability to do that.
Yes.
Some people, absolutely, but I know that's not my thing, right? So there has to be an element of ability, and that no one can control that. Like
That's innate.
Yeah, and there's even within athletes, like you might have one kid that is an All-American and he eats McDonald's for every meal and is the perfect physique, and the third stringer is doing extra stuff, extra workouts, extra practice.
The perfect diet.
And they, no matter what, will not pass that other person because they just are better. And that, I think, sometimes is hard to accept. And it is because, you're told, like, work hard, and absolutely. But you're like, sometimes there's going to be a case where maybe someone doesn't work as hard, but they just have a gift. And it's no one's fault,
So learning how to acceptance as an athlete.
Yeah,
accept the way
because
the rules are.
Yeah, and because for me, I see a lot of people struggle with comparison.
Ah, okay.
Like, well, I do this, and they only do this. And it's like, that's where sometimes families, I think, start to veer, and you go on a crazy, mental, roller coaster where it's like, they might do one thing and you might do 10, but that kid might just be better. And that's just what it is. And it's like, you don't like that answer, but I think that's sometimes part of the pillar. So I think, again, God-given ability, that's a piece. The second piece is player driving the bus, right? And then the third would be parent providing resources, right? So to me, those 3 things, when I see, successful athletes or whatever, they have that sort of component where they've got an athletic ability. They are in control of, I do want to go to this practice. I do want to try to make this team. I do want to, go to this workout. Because the moment they're not driving and they're being forced, it's not love anymore. And now you think you might be doing right by them, but the player has to drive. They have to drive. And as a parent, you have to provide them the platform. right? Whether
the road to drive on, basically.
Yeah, like,
you got to give them an open road.
Yeah, like
to where they can
be like, you know, if you want to do this training, we'll make sure you're in the training. If you want to make this team, we'll make sure you're prepared to make this team. You know, like help them support their drive. Because I think I see some of that, not failure, but the crossroads comes when the player's not driving it anymore.
Who's driving? Do you see?
Well, I think
if the player's not driving anymore, who do you see as like, ooh, then I get, you know, or they're not driving fast enough or the direction, so somebody now gets in there. What do you see sometimes, unfortunately? You know,
well, I think it's hard because, you know, you get into the situations where it's, you know, a parent's like, well, I see this for them. I know they can do it. And you're putting what you believe onto them. And I think there's, of course, a huge element of your support system believing in you and giving them confidence in whatever. But once you start slipping down into, well, all these people are doing this, so you need to sign up for all of it. You know, this person's got an advisor, so we need to have one. And now you've gone into all of these things that might be from comparison, or if we want to go D1, we have to have these things. And the goal becomes again, not a goal led by the player, but from all of these outside things that you feel like you're getting so sucked into that, again, like to circle it to my upbringing. And again, I credit my parents 100% to being the people that provided the opportunity. And they didn't tell me no to things, because growing up, right, like I played soccer, you know, like my brother played baseball, I was the bat girl, you know, like we went golfing, you know, as a family, you know, on certain days. You know, you're doing hockey, you're in figure skating, you're doing a million things. And my parents never put me in a spot where it was like, you need to pick one, right? Like it was always like, okay, Kelsey, like maybe you have this tournament and you also have this tournament. Like you need to figure out like which one should you be at? Like if that means it's your state qualifier for soccer, like then you probably should, you know, but those things.
The ultimate choice was up to you.
Yeah.
But they helped guide and frame your options.
Yeah.
And maybe like, this, you know, versus.
And you're forced into, you know, from a young age, like, where is my gut leading me? Where is my heart leading me? Like, I have these people that are depending on me. I have these people that are depending on me. You know, like, you have all these different things, and, you know, you start to make those decisions from a young age that ultimately then as you get older, like, you get more comfortable with decision making. But I am a huge believer that, like, again, the kids we see successful that have come through, like, they play multiple things growing up, right? And I'm a huge believer that the more stuff you play, whether it's competitive or not, like, go play, like, kickball with your friends, you know, at recess, like, go play basketball, like, just do stuff. Because as people are starting to sports specialize, and you're not getting that full, total body building, all muscles, all your coordination, like the amount of times growing up at daycare, you know, we're climbing on monkey bars, we're climbing the playground, you know, all of those things, you're constantly playing, you're constantly developing your whole body. And now we see at such a young age, people are just doing one thing that now you might see these shoulder injuries, you might see these things that, like, they haven't fully developed. and again, like, they're kids. You know, you have to use all your limbs. You need to use all your muscles.
You need to go be a kid.
It's coordination.
Yeah.
It's all of it. And so, again, for me growing up, like, I did everything. I followed my brother and his friends around. You know, I was constantly like, you know, one night, maybe you're at hockey, then it's straight to soccer, and then, you know, whatever. But you're doing a million things, and it was never, I have to give up, you know, something. And my thing too is like, at that younger level, like, if people are getting put into a spot where it's like, well, you have to be on this team. No, to be on this team, you can only be on this and not do anything else, and you have to miss. And you're kind of like, well, what kind of advice then are you giving a young athlete? You know, like, as a youth coach, you know, I would struggle to see why it's like, well, if I can have you 75% of the time, that's still better than 0, and you still get to be a kid that loves this sport. So I wouldn't discourage anyone to quit. Like, to make it to our team, you don't need to only play hockey. You know?
That's what I was gonna say. Like, when you were 10 years old, you didn't say, I'm gonna play for the Golden Gophers. Did you know at 10 that's what you wanted to do?
Oh God,
or were you like, I'm playing all these sports? I didn't even, it didn't come in your...
Right, no, and I don't think so. Like, I don't think...
So you didn't feel that pressure,
No.
it just kind of happened organically.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like, again, it steers back to my parents in terms of, you know, just continue to provide the platform, you know, like, and then once I got to like 10th grade soccer, you know, after that 10th grade year, I was like, you know, like, I think I'm good with soccer.
Okay.
Like, you know, I liked it. I'm good. I quit after that year and then played tennis my last 2 high school years. You know, I was like, this looks fun. I'll try this, like, with my buddies. So it was never like, whatever decision I made, I don't know, maybe they judged me, but I never felt it. But it was always like, that's fine. Like, if you're good with soccer, that's good. And okay, if you want to pick up tennis, like, just figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, so it was always doing something, like, something different, because it's even for our current players, like, once our season's over, it's so long, it's so whatever. April and May, you're like, go do something. You know, like, even when we were at Minnesota, after our seasons, you know, with some of the wrestlers, we made a co-ed slow pitch team that we played in the intramurals. Yeah. Because it was like, you need to get out and do something else, you know? And if you put your
Who's better, hockey girls or the wrestlers?
Or the wrestler. It was hit or miss. It was hit or miss.
No pun intended.
It depended. Yeah. So yeah, like, I think the way youth sports is going, there's a lot of false truths out there of, to your question, like, to make it to our team. It's honestly, like,
what should be the route for my daughter? Like, if I'm a parent right now, and just say my daughter is on Ohio State's radar.
Yeah.
What would be the ideal situation for Ohio State recruiting my daughter?
Yeah.
I, as a parent, like, how should that look? What should I do to help her perform the platform and still let her drive the bus and me not elbow, you know, and me get into the bus here? Like, how should this look? How should this act? What would you like to see?
Right. Well, and I know everyone's accessibility of hockey is different, right? Like, we aren't soccer where no matter what state, city, whatever, you can find a park with a field. Same with basketball. So I understand from an accessibility standpoint, hockey is different, right? Like, if you live in South Carolina, if they become an age where there's still hockey is my thing, you might have to go to a boarding school. You might have to make that decision as a family in terms of they're practicing every day, they play, 40 games, there's like-minded individuals around you. I completely understand that. You know, like if you're in a market that's, you know, Boston, Detroit, Minnesota, Toronto, and you've got hockey in your city, for sure, you don't need to leave, right? Like, you're good. You're going to be just fine, right? Like, and it's all the obvious things. Like, say, again, any sport, the club teams that are good, we all know which teams are good, right? So, all right, let me get in that program. And then as I get older, you know, because then again, it's as college coaches.
So if my daughter is good, you're going to know.
Yeah.
So like I don't need to go get an advisor for my daughter to help. Maybe if she's not as good, to do something to get her exposure.
Right.
But if my daughter is going to go,
your coach.
Okay.
You know, so you're like, say I live and I play for the Red Deer team in Canada.
Okay.
Right? Like, they've got a coach. And if this coach calls us and is like, I'm telling you, there's this person. Okay, next time we're at a tournament you're at, we will make sure we watch. You know, like.
And you're also probably going to catch that girl, that athlete as well at that tournament.
Yeah, and you have so
seeing
many nets that you can cast, right? Like, again, if you're good, there's Hockey Canada scouts. If you're good, there's USA Hockey scouts. You know, if you're in Europe,
you're going to be found.
You know, they're going to recruit you to play in their league. You know, so, yeah, you know.
So that will take care of itself.
Totally.
The hockey. Okay.
Totally.
So
you know,
as a parent, I don't have to do anything. Or shouldn't do. Do you think?
No, you're just.
Do you see parents sometimes maybe get in the way of the process?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, once it comes to the recruiting time, I think that's also a two-part thing, right? Like, we as coaches, there's going to be a part of that process that we're getting to know the kid without the parents, because ultimately, again, this kid is driving their own bus. This kid, if they come to Ohio State, is going to have to live there, get themselves up for school, go to workout, feed them, you know, like go to practice, all of that on their own. So there's an element where this athlete needs to be their own person so that when they're getting recruited and you're getting to know, you know, me, you know, maybe you coach for Colgate, XYZ place, that athlete has to be somewhat of their own person to even know what's right for them. You know, where I would say to your point of where parents may get in the way is the parent is driving the recruiting process. But mom and dad, you're not the ones that are showing up to practice. You're not setting your alarm for 6 a.m. to go to lift. You're not, you know. So that's where there's that piece of you can provide opportunity and support, and that goes for recruiting too. Like, you're a supportive figure. And maybe, you know, you still have parents and us still have questions for each other. Of course, like you're sending your child to a place and I need to know certain things of 100%. You know, we're so the guardians, right? We're gonna be the one that sees them every day. But when it comes down to the choice, it can't be the parent's choice. It can't be an advisor's choice. It can't be an NIL agent's choice. The kid has to drive it. And then that's where you get into sometimes that situation where they leave after a year. They leave after 2 years.
Which we're seeing a lot of that now.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you get so sucked into maybe so many different voices that it's ultimately you lost the main voice, which was the kid. You know? And sometimes at that time, again, kids develop differently, whatever it may be. Maybe they haven't had to make a hard choice before. You know, maybe they haven't had to do that. But that's where, as a parent, you have to support. And it's not like, well, this advisor, we pay X amount, so we got to listen to them. Mm-hmm. How do they know? The only one that knows is the kid of what they're comfortable with. You know, and like even for me, like I toured a lot of schools out east, you know, some of which were Ivy League schools. And it's like, even to this day, like sometimes, you know, my dad jokes with me of like, man, I just can't believe, you know, like you had, you know, that opportunity. And I'm like, but I didn't feel good there. You know, like whether it was walking around the school, seeing I'm like, that wasn't me, you know, but again, like in my upbringing and all of that, like I commend my parents in a sense of like, they guided, they gave advice, but ultimately the choices I made were my choices and I live with those, you know, and how my path ended up, like now you're like looking back, you're like, you don't regret a thing, you know, like you've won, you're accomplished, you know, all of these things. And so that's why like, you know, there is no regret in that because the path was driven by me, you know, and I took people's counsel, but I didn't ever pay them for their counsel or whatever. I listened, I took it in, I digested, I made pros and cons lists, but it's like the world may seem complicated, but at the end of the day, a lot of things don't change, right? A pros and cons list, right? Talking to people you trust, and then take all that information and you decide what's best for you, you know?
Keeping it simple.
Keep it simple, you know? And it's the same thing of like, what do I need to do for my daughter to get to your team or the top teams or a team, like any team? It's simple. Figure out where the opportunities are, make sure your child is prepared for the opportunity, be on the teams that travel to the tournaments, and then you see what happens, you know?
Hey, Coach, wow. I mean, talking about, you got a lot going on. You know, I can't thank you personally enough for coming on here and sharing with us, you know, your insights of what it takes to be as accomplished as yourself at such a young age. I think it'd be really cool to get a lot of that out into the field and get a lot more of our young women athletes to look at you as such a role model and how to emulate you know, what you've done and what you're currently still doing, which is exciting. So here at Canines for America, you know, we're really excited to you know, keep following your career, and hopefully we can bring you back you know, to talk more specifics a little bit more. You know, hopefully you have a dog by that time and a new furry companion friend. But you know, I know at Ohio State you got your hands full.
I know.
But you know, thank you very, very much. You know, I can't thank you guys out there for watching. You know, our goal is to bring you a lot more of this content, you know, constantly throughout the 2025 year. So if you like what you saw, please make sure that you subscribe and don't forget to hit that like button. Really help us out. So again, thanks for watching. And if you want to hear more, you know, about Coach Cline, I'm sure we'll have her back. So again, thank you, Coach.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it big time.
Yeah.
So go Buckeyes, and I'm sure next year in March you guys are going to be back representing a fifth or sixth national championship game against those Wisconsin Badgers. And I'm sure, you know, you guys will even that series out to 2-2. As you just take the years to play out this series. So again, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.